You learn the industry standard structures for overlaying a financial projection framework onto the actual mechanics of real estate transactions for income-producing assets. And we start at the very top line of gross potential rent and take it all the way through the bottom line of the post-income tax cash flow to equity. And there's a lot in between. What students sometimes don't understand is while making these projections is unfortunately an exercise in projecting the wrong numbers, we still do need to strive for as much precision as possible. Why is that important if the numbers are going to be wrong anyway?
Yeah, it's an important point. I played a lot of sports over my life, and you never know what's going to really happen in the game conditions, except that you know it will be generally very different than you prepared for, than you planned for, than you practiced and drilled for. But if you have not practiced and drilled and prepared and thought about it ahead of time in controlled environment, in an environment where as little as possible is moving, where you have as much time to concentrate as possible, you'll never execute well when chaos is occurring around you and things have to be made. And so in sports you go through drills, practice drills, exercise drills, endlessly, so that you're prepared for what should happen and have built-in instincts on what happens when things go awry, which they certainly will. And in real estate, I think it's the same way. In business, it's the same way. If you don't make yourself think about what's going to happen, why should it happen, how will it happen, if it doesn't happen, what might, why would it not happen that way, if you don't make yourself do that, not just before you make an acquisition, after you make an acquisition, because as you know, these are ongoing living beasts that you'll do it, whether it's a budget or a plan, a business plan, as you proceed through the life of the property. If you're not doing it in the quiet and forcing yourself to think about these questions, you're going to be unprepared to deal with the reality of what comes up. So before you're buying a property, you're going through this discipline of line by line by line, what, why, and why do I believe that, and why could it be? And you're having those discussions with your partners and your investors and your management team. And it's all to make yourself go through the exercise of what could happen, why could happen, what am I really anticipating, and as part of that, drawing on your experience base, saying, and if it goes wrong, what will I do? Am I willing to live with it if it goes wrong? Am I really willing to bet on outstripping inflation by 4% for 3 years? So by forcing yourself, you're really imposing the thought discipline of thinking through your business strategy. And as part of that, what will you do if your business strategy is wrong? So that's why it's critical. It's not as critical in the sense of, and the numbers show that your NOI will be $4 million, as what is it as a real business matter that makes me believe income could be $4 million, and what would keep it from being $4 million, and how would I react if it does?
Right. And it's often hard to impress upon students or folks who are new in the business the ripple effect of every individual input, every individual assumption. In our models, we color code them so that they jump out off the page in a bold blue font. And every one of these inputs in isolation looks totally innocuous. But when taken in concert with one another, you're creating this, as you said, this living organism that is taking direction from you, that the rents are going to grow at X% and the expenses are going to grow at X minus 2%. And everything has a ripple effect.
And one of the mistakes that people make, and I mention it in the book, is they look at the line items in abstraction from one another, and they don't operate in abstraction. I mean, you saw it in the downturn. The downturn of 2009 not only hurt occupancy, it hurt rents, it it froze. Instead of thinking that your empty space would lease up quickly, it leased up slowly. Instead of your full space being full, it was empty. Instead of rents going up, they went down. Instead of your marketing budget going down, it went up. Cap rates went up. And you go, they're all reacting to the same phenomena, which is a very weak economy and no confidence. And your loan that you assume was going to roll, can't roll. They're all linked to the same phenomena, which is a bad economy and terrible capital market confidence. So if all you did was say, well, what if the cap rate was 50 basis points higher, but my rents are the same and so forth, you miss the reality of the question you should be asking is, what if the economy were really bad? What if the capital markets really did horrible things?
Right.
As a whole, and work through what they would mean for each cell in your spreadsheet. Now, you're still going to be wrong, but you need to think about it not of what if this cell is 2% higher or 2% lower, but what if the world is a very different world? What cells does it change, and in which ways would it change them?
Right, exactly. I was teaching Chapter 4 once to a class, and a student asked me, all right, so now we understand everything that drives the property level pro forma. How do we model in for the general economy? And I was a little dumbfounded, and I guess I did a poor job of teaching. I didn't make it clear that every one of these assumptions that informs the property level has opinions and estimations about the general economy baked into it.
Yep, and my building relative to other buildings.
Right.
What if somebody builds a new building? What does it mean for my building? And when does it mean it? So my experience is ask big questions and think them through about the whole spreadsheet rather than small questions like what if occupancy is 5% higher or 5% lower. Think about the big question and then try to answer what it means for the whole page.